There are some people who say that our destiny is indeed in our own hands. It's up to us to shape it and to make it what we want it to be. That we are the captains of our own fate, the masters of our own ships, and that whatever you want your future to be, you can do it. You really don't need a whole lot of outside help. You will it, and it will happen. There are others who would suggest that when you come right down to it, we don't have much say about what is determined in our lives at all. That there are huge and powerful forces out there that are shaping things around us and shaping us, and sometimes shaping us against our wills. Some may say that God is playing with us, but not so much God as fate and chance, saying that we have been already determined because of our families, the parental influences that have been upon us, the effect of our friends and the society in which we are living. We are just moving down a stream, and all these things are acting on our lives. Well, as I understand the scriptures, both of those extremes are wrong. Masters of our own destinies, not so much. There are a huge number of obstacles and limits that stand in the way of our being as autonomous as perhaps we once thought we could be. Lifting ourselves up by our bootstraps is an optical and physical illusion. And there's always more to the story of the supposed self-made man or woman. It may have been good fortune, who knows? It may have been good opportunities, good friends, good connections. Who knows what played a part in that? And it wasn't that person all by himself or herself. But on the other side, I think most of us are tired of the poor victim scenario, that is poor me pitted against all of the adversities of life. No, I think when you come down to it, we are accountable for the living of our lives, for the choices we have made and the outcomes of that. Don't blame the neighbors. Don't blame school friends or the parents or the big brother or the big sister you had to endure. And don't blame God. We wake up every morning confronting a host of choices which will determine how not only that day will play out, but choices that will be part of the continuing saga of our life journey. So the bottom line for me, as my vision as a Christian, is that life is a partnership. It's a partnership, God with us together. It's a partnership with God depending on how much we really want God to be a part of the partnership. That God is more willing to be in it than perhaps we are to have God in it. The Bible is a complex collection of stories. Some of those are very, very old, and they reflect human beings very early on, trying to make sense of their lives and seeking some workable ideas about God, and in my viewpoint, they didn't always get it right. Some of the newer stories of the Bible reflect more later human thinking and development, still pondering the presence and the influence of this God that they sense about them. In all those stories, what is consistent is the conviction that God is involved. Involved in the lives of those faith people, God involved in a world created by divine wisdom and amazement, and put in the hands of human beings. I admit that I struggle with some of the stories of the Bible which portray God in ways that make me say, that's not the God I know. There are stories of the picture of God wanting every man, woman, and child killed in the promised land as the slaves from Egypt make their way into this new promised land, as if those inhabitants have no reason to exist, that God wants them all dead. I have a hard time with that kind of idea. But more often, the biblical writers do get it right. Although limited by what they knew at their time, they have given us some amazing insights into the heart and the mind of God. And so it is in Paul's letter to the Philippians that Paul would ask us, first of all, to be generous people. Can't go wrong there. Be generous to one another, for that is the Christ way. Away with selfishness. Accept and love the neighbor. That's what we're about on this earth, loving the neighbor. And then he includes what has become a worship hymn, a Christ hymn used in the early church early on as they gathered in their homes for worship, about Jesus being the one who empties himself and gives himself for the good of those who would follow him. And then Paul concludes what I read before in this way: work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, for God is at work in you, enabling you both to will and to work for God's good pleasure. Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Our salvation, yours and mine, however you consider salvation, I believe is always a work in progress. This continuing relationship with God has not already been determined and is finished. Whatever you once said to God or about God or your relationship with God is not yet etched in stone. You're not finished. We all have serious faith work yet to do ahead of us. And note the fear and trembling reference, that this faith journey is a long time journey, lifelong, tested often along the way with moments of calm and serenity, but there are also going to be times of confusion and despair. Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. And it is a God and us partnership, God and us together. And I admit that there are many times in my life that I wish God had not been such a silent partner in this partnership. Supposedly there, but wouldn't you want more assurance of that on some of those dark days? Yes, I am encouraged by the stories of the Bible, the biblical stories, the stories of others who have been on this Jesus walk as well. For they give me insight into where God has been. And by understanding where God has been, we have insight into where God will be. In the confusion of my daily life, I sometimes miss the connections, the similarities with what has happened before and what is going on right now, and how I can learn something from the past. And we do need each other to strengthen each other, to encourage each other, to support each other as together and individually we work out our salvation with fear and trembling. A man once bought a piece of land, rugged woodland, full of trees and rocks, He worked hard year by year, clearing the land, building up the soil, rotating the crops, organizing the resources to become a successful farm. One of the neighbors admired his efforts and said to him, "Ralph, it's really great what you and God have been able to do with that piece of land." To which Ralph replied, "Yes, but you should have seen it when God had it all by himself." Well, it's folly to take God out of any human equation, to discount God's participation and presence. In so many ways beyond our understanding, God has been at work, seeking our good, silent partner perhaps, but a presence we have come to depend on for the very gift of life. And it's also folly to think our participation is not needed as God seeks to love this world back into God's arms, back into God's wholeness, back into God's intentions. We are needed participating partners with God as God remains committed to God's world. And so it is God and us together, as you and I live out our individual lives. It is God and us together as you and I live out the relationships that enrich our daily living, connecting with those who depend on us and we on them, our lives knitted together in countless ways. It is God and us together as you and I move from what we have come to know to what God will still teach us if we remain teachable about ourselves, about those who are around us sharing this globe with us, and about the legacy that we will yet leave. It's God and us together. Amen.